It's said that the story of your life was written even before your birth, and its writing continues in this very moment. This isn't due to predetermined fate or random chance. Instead, it's attributed to an expansive and ancient realm of awareness. This realm holds the complete memory of everything your soul has ever experienced, felt, or envisioned. There exists a domain, if it can be described as such, that contains every thought, every intention, and every karmic trace of every being that has ever lived. This realm is characterized by a profound stillness, often unnoticed. It is so subtle that most individuals never perceive it. Yet, it remains perpetually present, just beyond the periphery of our ordinary awareness. You may have sensed it before, in the quietude of meditation, the peculiar familiarity of déjà vu, or in dreams that possess a heightened sense of reality compared to waking life. Ancient civilizations referred to it as Akasha, while mystics understood it through intuition. Today, we identify it as the Akashic Records. However, it's crucial to understand that this is not a modern fantasy. Rather, it represents the fundamental blueprint underlying your reality. Once you grasp its existence, your perception of yourself will undergo a profound transformation. There's a reason why you might occasionally feel as though your life is part of a narrative you don't fully comprehend. It's akin to being placed into the middle of a book chapter without any recollection of the preceding pages. This sensation is not mere imagination, it's intuition. Deep within, a part of you recognizes that your soul has experienced far more than just this single lifetime. It inherently knows that a record of those past lives exists, and that they didn't simply disappear upon your birth into this present one. This record possesses a name that has been whispered across continents, traditions, and throughout time for millennia: the Akashic Records. These records are not a physical book, nor are they tangible in nature. They are not secured within an ancient building or buried beneath the earth. Instead, they exist within a dimension that transcends both time and space, functioning as a non-physical field of consciousness, akin to a spiritual database. Imagine a vibrational archive that stores not only your actions, but also your thoughts, emotions, intentions, every decision you've ever made, every lesson you were meant to learn, and every lifetime you've lived. This encompasses not just you, but every individual, every soul, and every experience. This concept is not exclusive to a select few. This is the very landscape of consciousness itself. The term Akashic originates from the Sanskrit word Akasha, which translates to ether or spirit. In ancient Indian cosmology, it represents the fifth element, beyond earth, water, fire, and air, signifying the subtle, energetic substance from which all things originate. For the ancients, Akasha was not merely a poetic notion. It served as the invisible thread that connected all of existence, the medium through which divine intelligence expresses itself. The Akashic Records are essentially what this field remembers. This idea is not confined to a minor area of metaphysics. Variations of this concept exist within nearly every mystical tradition. The Hebrews spoke of the Book of Life, and the ancient Egyptians believed in a Hall of Records. In Islam, there is the Al-Law al-Mahfuz, the preserved tablet that records all things. In modern Western esotericism, thinkers such as Helena Blavatsky and Rudolf Steiner extensively discussed a spiritual memory field that surpasses the limitations of our senses. They were not inventing this concept, but rather recalling it. If you've ever wondered why some individuals seem to possess innate wisdom, or why you've experienced unexplained fears, uncanny abilities, or profound emotional reactions that feel far older than your current life, you are not mistaken. You are sensing echoes from the Akashic Records. You are more than your present circumstances. You are a soul carrying layers of past experiences. These layers of experience you carry are not random occurrences. They form patterns integral to a larger learning journey that your soul consciously chose to explore. However, until you gain awareness of these recurring patterns, they tend to repeat unconsciously across successive lifetimes. This is where the Akashic Records transcend being merely a concept. They become a key, a map, a compass guiding you back to your true self. Within these records lie answers that extend beyond your past identities to reveal who you are in the process of becoming. There are profound insights waiting to be understood, lessons yearning to be integrated into your being, and a fundamental truth that most individuals never even come close to realizing. Your purpose is not something you create. It is something you remember. Some truths are difficult to articulate here, yet their importance necessitates their sharing. This is because there's a crucial aspect that is often not disclosed. The Akashic Records are not inaccessible. They are simply overlooked. The majority of people never even attempt to access them, not due to a lack of inherent ability, but because they were never informed that such access was possible. They were conditioned to believe that knowledge resides solely in books, that authority rests within institutions, and that answers must originate from external sources. However, the Akashic Records reveal a different truth. They assert that the highest form of knowledge is not learned but recalled. You do not need to be an enlightened guru or a psychic individual to tap into this wisdom. You simply need to cultivate a state of inner stillness sufficient to perceive what has already been resonating within you. The Akashic field does not favor a select elite. It responds to genuine intention, heartfelt sincerity, and a state of inner readiness. Therefore, the fundamental question is not whether you can access the records, but rather what transpires when you do. Long before the term Akashic Records was ever coined, there existed individuals who possessed this knowing, not through theoretical understanding, but through direct personal experience. These visionaries, mystics, seers, and sages touched upon something beyond the ordinary veil of perception and returned with messages written in the essence of light itself, not in conventional ink. They did not refer to it as a record because what they encountered transcended linguistic expression. It was truth in its purest, most vibratory form. Across diverse continents and cultures, whispers circulated about a realm, if it could even be called such, where the memories of the soul were preserved, guarded not by physical barriers, but by vibrational frequency. Those who reached this realm did not perceive it with their physical eyes. They felt its truth resonating deep within their being. The Vedic rishis of ancient India spoke of Akasha as the fundamental substance underlying all of reality, the very origin of all forms and all thoughts. In their worldview, nothing was ever truly lost. It merely returned to Akasha, akin to a ripple merging back into the vastness of the ocean. Tibetan mystics referred to this same field as the mind stream, a continuous flow of consciousness that extends beyond the boundaries of individual lifetimes. The Druids, the Egyptians, the Gnostics, and the Mayans all possessed their own unique names for this concept. Different languages and symbols were employed, yet the underlying understanding remained consistent. There exists an invisible domain that remembers everything. So, what became of this profound knowledge? It did not simply vanish. It was systematically dismantled, marginalized, and rebranded as mere superstition by institutions that perceived its far-reaching implications. For if the soul possesses memory, then one's identity transcends the limitations of nationality, religious affiliation, and even biological makeup. If the Akashic Records are indeed real, then true authority must reside internally, not be externally imposed. This notion posed a significant threat to systems built upon control. During periods of colonization, numerous indigenous cultures with rich oral traditions centered on the memory of the soul were forcibly silenced. Sacred ceremonies, those that facilitated the opening of intuitive channels to the Akasha, were outlawed, ridiculed, or replaced with imposed practices. The destruction of ancient libraries, the demonization of indigenous spiritual practices, and the deliberate rewriting of spiritual history all formed part of a concerted effort to sever the intrinsic connection between human beings and the profound knowledge that exists beyond the confines of the five physical senses. Even in our current era of rational thought, the concept of the Akashic Records is frequently dismissed as pseudoscience or mere fantasy. Yet, those who criticize it often fail to provide adequate explanations for phenomena such as children recalling past lives, unrelated individuals sharing identical dreams, or ancient texts from diverse civilizations describing remarkably similar experiences of soul memory with uncanny accuracy. It's not a matter of a lack of evidence. Rather, the existing evidence doesn't align with the prevailing narrative. A society predicated on consumption and unquestioning obedience cannot easily function if its members begin to inquire about their previous existences and question the completeness of the stories they've been told. Consequently, a new narrative was presented, one that defines you by your name, your profession, your race, and your gender. According to this dominant narrative, your past begins with your birth certificate and concludes with your death certificate, relegating everything else to the realm of fairy tales. However, beneath this constructed story, the older, more fundamental one has been patiently waiting. The one encoded in dreams that defy explanation. The one whispered in moments of profound silence, when the clamor of the external world fades, allowing you to finally perceive your own inner knowing. This exploration is not about supplanting religion, proving a specific point, or claiming access to secret knowledge. It is fundamentally about remembrance, about reclaiming a truth that was taken not solely through acts of violence, but also through ridicule, distraction, and the gradual process of forgetting. The Akashic Records are not a recent discovery. They're ancient beyond our capacity to fully comprehend. What is new is the increasing number of individuals awakening to their existence once more. And perhaps that is why you are drawn to this information. Not to acquire entirely new knowledge, but to recall something timeless, something your ancestors once understood before it was forcibly erased from their collective memory, something your soul has been endeavoring to reveal to you all along. For when you come to realize that history is not merely inscribed in books, but also exists as energy, as vibrational frequency, and within your very being, you begin to reclaim the narrative that no one else can author for you. Accessing the Akashic Records does not require a library card, nor does it necessitate permission from any institution, academic degree, or spiritual hierarchy. The records were never intended to be owned or guarded. They were meant to be felt, remembered, and integrated into one's life. This fundamental characteristic distinguishes them from every other source of knowledge. They respond not to intellectual prowess, but to vibrational frequency. You do not read them with your physical eyes. Rather, you align yourself with them. You attune your consciousness to their specific vibration. Similar to adjusting the dial of a radio, your awareness shifts into a state where the interference diminishes and the signal becomes clear and audible. People have engaged in this process for millennia, even in the absence of a specific name for it. It occurs in states of deep meditation, altered states of consciousness, and in dreams that seem to reveal glimpses of other lifetimes or long-forgotten memories. Access can also occur spontaneously during periods of intense grief, profound joy, or moments of complete inner stillness. However, the fundamental access point remains the same: presence. You cannot force your way into the records. Instead, you gently soften into them, surrendering to an awareness so still and so honest that your own energetic frequency aligns with the frequency of truth itself. Mystics and sages frequently describe the records as a vibrational field. This is because the information they contain is not conveyed through conventional language, with sentences and paragraphs. Instead, it is a form of direct knowing, a state of resonance. Some individuals describe their experience of accessing the records as entering a vast library or an ancient temple filled with scrolls and radiant light. Others perceive it as colors, sounds, or symbolic imagery that may not translate directly into words but carries profound emotional understanding. This emotional resonance is key. The records do not communicate with your logical, analytical mind. They speak directly to the soul. Contemporary spiritual practitioners have developed various methods for consciously entering this realm. Some utilize guided meditations or specific prayers, such as the pathway prayer popularized by Linda Howe. Others access the records through automatic writing, allowing the subconscious mind to articulate what the conscious mind is not yet able to perceive. Breathwork practices, the use of plant medicine in certain contexts, lucid dreaming, and astral projection have also served as gateways for those who are prepared to explore the deeper landscapes of consciousness. However, no single method holds universal efficacy. The specific technique employed is less significant than the underlying intention. Intention is paramount. If you approach the records seeking definitive proof, a sense of control, or mere entertainment, you will likely encounter nothing at all. However, if you approach with reverence, genuine curiosity, and a willingness to undergo personal transformation, the field responds. This process is not always comfortable. The records do not cater to your ego. Instead, they reveal recurring patterns, fundamental truths, and cyclical behaviors that you have repeated across multiple lifetimes, as well as deep-seated wounds that you have carried for longer than you can consciously remember. But they also illuminate your inherent power, untapped, ancient, and waiting to be rediscovered. They offer profound clarity in areas where you have experienced confusion for years. And they whisper the same fundamental message repeatedly. You are far more than you have been led to believe. What is remarkable is that many individuals have already accessed the records without even conscious awareness. That intuitive knowing that steered you away from a detrimental decision. That peculiar moment of knowing what someone was about to say before they uttered the words. That inexplicable pull toward a particular place, person, or path. These are not mere coincidences. They are echoes, fleeting glimpses through the veil. Your soul attempting to communicate amidst the distractions of a world often designed to keep you outwardly focused. And the fundamental truth is that accessing the Akashic Records is not about escaping this earthly existence. It is about fully embodying your complete self within this world. It is not a means to bypass reality. Rather, it is a way to perceive reality with greater clarity, to see beyond the illusions and the conditioning down to the very root of your being. When you access the records, you don't merely recall who you once were. You remember who you came here to be. And this type of memory is not passive. It actively moves you. It transforms how you navigate your life. It reshapes your responses to challenges, your perceptions of others, and the narrative you construct about your own existence. For once you have stood within the realm of the infinite and witnessed your place within its grand tapestry, nothing can ever again convince you that you are small, broken, or powerless. You did not arrive here empty-handed. You did not come to this planet as a blank slate, randomly thrust into a chaotic world. You arrived with a blueprint, a soul-level design shaped by countless lifetimes of experience, intention, and consequence. The Akashic Records hold this very blueprint. They do not simply contain information about your past experiences. They map out the energetic residue of those experiences, what some refer to as karma, what others call soul memory, but what is fundamentally the spiritual architecture of your ongoing evolution. Karma, however, has been widely misunderstood. It is not a form of punishment. It is not a system of cosmic retribution for wrongdoing. Instead, karma is memory. It is momentum. It is energy rippling forward, seeking resolution, balance, and continued growth. Consider it akin to an unfinished musical chord that yearns for completion. If you betrayed someone in a past life, you might now experience a deep-seated need to protect others in this one. If you suppressed your own truth for many years, you might now feel an undeniable compulsion to speak out, even if your voice trembles. These are not random personality traits. They are threads, intricate patterns of emotion and energy woven across lifetimes, creating a profound sense of continuity within your soul's overarching narrative. And then there are soul contracts. These are not rigid, pre-written scripts, but rather agreements made at the soul level before your current incarnation. These are arrangements to encounter specific individuals, to confront particular challenges, or to undergo certain pivotal lessons. That seemingly toxic relationship, that impossibly difficult parent, that mentor who appeared at precisely the right moment. These are not always mere coincidences. They may very well be integral parts of a deeper soul contract, a mutual agreement to serve as catalysts for growth in each other's journeys. No matter the difficulty of the journey, the Akashic Records offer us glimpses into these soul contracts, not to help us evade pain, but to comprehend its underlying purpose. This is why the records transcend being mere data repositories. They function as mirrors of transformation. When you gain access to your soul's blueprint, your perception of your struggles begins to shift. You cease to ask the question, "Why is this happening to me?" and instead begin to inquire, "What is this teaching me?" You start to recognize the recurring patterns in your life, the same fundamental lesson appearing in various guises, the same types of heartbreak, the same ingrained fears, the same acts of self-sabotage. And when you become aware of these patterns, you gain the power to consciously rewrite them, because awareness itself disrupts the cycle. And the choices you make with full consciousness become the very seeds of transformation. There is also a profound significance in perceiving your inherent gifts through the lens of the Akashic Records. While discussions about past lives often focus on unresolved wounds, it's important to remember that wisdom also endures. Talents, inherent strengths, and even spiritual abilities can carry over from one lifetime to the next. That inexplicable inclination towards healing, teaching, or creative expression. It might not be a novel impulse. It could be something your soul has been diligently refining across numerous lifetimes. And the records serve as a guide, helping you to recall not only the origins of your pain, but also the wellspring of your inner power. Understanding your soul's blueprint also naturally dissolves the tendency towards comparison. Once you recognize that every individual is on a unique path of evolutionary growth, the need to measure your progress against someone else's timeline simply fades away. You begin to honor the unfolding of your own personal journey. You cease rushing the process, you stop assigning blame, and you begin to trust that the challenges you face are not mere obstacles, but rather potent catalysts for growth and awakening. The Akashic Records reveal the intricate curriculum of the soul, and once you gain insight into this curriculum, even your most significant setbacks begin to feel like sacred assignments designed for your ultimate benefit. But perhaps the most liberating truth of all is that your soul's blueprint is not fixed or immutable. It is inherently fluid. While the past undoubtedly influences the present, it does not hold it captive. Karma is not an irreversible life sentence, and soul contracts can indeed be renegotiated. Deep-seated patterns can be consciously broken. This understanding is not rooted in determinism, but in the power of awareness. The records do not chain you to a predetermined fate. Rather, they offer you a map, but you retain the freedom to choose your path. You still hold the pen, and in every single moment, you are either unconsciously repeating an old, familiar pattern or consciously initiating an entirely new cycle. Therefore, when you ask the profound question, "What is my purpose?" you're not waiting for a definitive answer to descend from some external source. Instead, you are being invited to remember what your soul already inherently knows. The fundamental blueprint has always resided within you. The Akashic Records are simply the key that allows you to decode it. For the majority of people, the concept of the Akashic Records sounds at best like poetic fancy, something relegated to the realm of mystics and metaphysics. A comforting metaphor for those who hold a belief in something beyond the tangible. But what if it is more than just a metaphor? What if what ancient sages described as a spiritual library is something that modern science is only now beginning to catch glimpses of through the lens of energy fields, quantum theory, and consciousness studies that are challenging the very foundations of what we once thought we knew about the nature of reality? There is a significant reason why mainstream science has largely overlooked the Akashic Records. They do not fit neatly within a purely materialist worldview. You cannot place the records under a microscope, measure them with a physical ruler, or quantify their essence within a laboratory setting. However, Consciousness itself, your thoughts, your dreams, your memories, also defies such direct measurement. And yet, you possess an undeniable knowing of their existence. The Akashic Records may not be physical in their manifestation, but neither is the very internet signal that enables you to read these words. The fact that something is unseen does not equate to it being unreal. Physicists have long understood that reality is not as solid and immutable as it appears to our everyday senses. At the quantum level, everything is fundamentally energy, constantly vibrating, intricately interconnected, and inherently dynamic. What we perceive as solid form is merely a dense arrangement of underlying frequencies. Information, it turns out, may be the very foundation upon which the universe is built. Not matter, not even energy itself, but information. This is the crucial point where the concept of a field of stored data transcends mere mysticism and begins to emerge as a viable model for understanding reality. The late Irvin Laszlo, a systems philosopher and two-time Nobel Peace Prize nominee, introduced the compelling concept of the Akashic field as a universal information field that underlies the entirety of creation. According to his insightful theory, the universe is not a random, chaotic accident, but rather a coherent, interconnected system fundamentally driven by the vast amount of information stored within this Akashic field. He did not simply extract this idea from ancient texts. Instead, he discovered profound parallels between the cutting-edge discoveries of modern physics and the timeless wisdom inherent in spiritual traditions across the globe. To him, the Akashic Records were not a fanciful notion, but a scientific inevitability, patiently awaiting our deeper understanding. Then there is the fascinating holographic universe theory, championed by esteemed scientists such as David Bohm and Carl Pribram. This theory proposes that the universe functions in a manner akin to a hologram, where each individual part contains the information of the whole. This implies that all information is encoded everywhere and at all times. Consider how every single cell within your body holds the complete imprint of your entire genetic code. By extension, every single point within this universal field could potentially hold the memory of every single moment, every single life, every single possibility. Does this sound familiar? While these scientific theories may not provide definitive proof of the Akashic Records in a traditional, empirical sense, they undeniably open the door to their plausibility. They challenge the limiting belief we have been told that we are isolated, separate beings existing within a dead, purely mechanical universe. Instead, these emerging scientific perspectives point towards something far more intimate and profound, a cosmos intricately woven with intelligence, inherent memory, and deep interconnection. A field that remembers, a universe that comes to know itself through your very being. Even near-death experiences, once readily dismissed as mere hallucinations, now offer compelling clues. Many individuals who have returned from these experiences describe encountering a realm of profound knowing, where their entire life unfolded before them, not in a judgmental way, but with deep understanding. Some who have had near-death experiences report seeing not only the events of their own lives, but also the far-reaching impact of their actions on others, rippling outward like endless echoes. This profound level of awareness, this panorama perspective, is remarkably consistent with the descriptions provided by spiritual practitioners who have consciously accessed the Akashic Records. This is not mere storytelling. It is a transmission of memory that transcends the limitations of linear time. Then there is the enduring mystery of human intuition. How does a mother, for instance, sense that her child is in imminent danger from vast distances? How do some individuals possess an uncanny ability to just know when something is not right, often before any tangible evidence presents itself? These perplexing phenomena hint at something far deeper than mere logical deduction. They suggest that we are already intrinsically connected to a vast field of information that extends far beyond the confines of our individual consciousness. It implies that we are not simply making educated guesses. We are in some profound way tapping into a form of universal memory. And perhaps this is the most crucial aspect to consider. The Akashic Records do not ask you to embrace a completely new belief system. Instead, they gently invite you to remember something ancient, something deeply ingrained within your very being. To consider the possibility that perhaps, just perhaps, the universe is not a cold, random, and meaningless void, but rather a conscious and intentionally unfolding tapestry. That your thoughts, your choices, your very essence are not fleeting, ephemeral moments lost to the relentless march of time, but rather integral parts of a living, breathing record that holds the entirety of existence. While mainstream science has not yet fully caught up to this profound understanding, it is undeniably drawing closer with each passing discovery. And when the artificial gap between the realms of science and spirituality finally begins to close, we may very well discover that the greatest truths were never truly hidden from us. We simply cease to look in the right place. From the very moment of your birth, the world around you began to diligently tell you who you are, not with genuine curiosity and open-mindedness, but with unwavering certainty and preconceived notions. It assigned you a name, a nationality, a religion, a place within a rigid school system, a specific set of beliefs, and an extensive list of rules and regulations. It meticulously taught you what was considered real, what was relegated to the realm of imagination, and what was deemed dangerous or even forbidden to contemplate. And somewhere within that long list of unspoken agreements and societal norms, it subtly slipped in one powerful message, spoken louder than all the rest. Forget. Forget who you truly are. Forget what you have lived through. Forget the origins of your being. Forget the knowledge you possess. This erasure was not accidental, nor was it an unfortunate byproduct of navigating the complexities of the modern world. It was an integral part of a larger, systemic design, a system meticulously crafted to sever your connection to anything that would empower you, anything that would affirm your inherent sovereignty, anything that would serve as a constant reminder that your soul holds a memory far more profound than your current name, your professional title, or your government-issued identification. For an individual who remembers their true nature is inherently difficult to control, and control is the very currency of the world in which we currently reside. Consequently, instead of fostering wonder and curiosity, you were conditioned towards obedience. Instead of nurturing your innate intuition, you were subjected to rote repetition. Instead of encouraging deep soul work, you were primarily engaged in schoolwork, constantly directed to seek answers externally and to harbor suspicion towards anything that arose from within your own being. If you experienced vivid visions, you were labeled as having an overactive imagination. If you possessed recollections of past lives, you were dismissed as indulging in fantasy. If you felt a profound connection to aspects of reality that defied logical explanation, you were urged to forget those feelings. All the while, you were presented with a version of reality that was deliberately flattened and overly mechanistic, where anything sacred or mystical was reduced to mere superstition or frivolous entertainment. This is the fundamental reason why the Akashic Records feel so distant and inaccessible to so many individuals. It is not because they are inherently unreachable, but because your mind has been systematically trained to reject anything that cannot be empirically proven by systems specifically designed to keep you feeling limited and small. You were taught that truth originates from external authority figures, that knowledge is something to be diligently earned through external validation, and that wisdom only holds value if it has been peer-reviewed, commodified, or institutionalized. But the essence of the soul operates on a different plane, and so do the Akashic Records. The truth is, you have already experienced moments of accessing them, even if you didn't label them as such at the time. Those sudden flashes of profound clarity that seem to arise from nowhere, that inexplicable sense of having known someone for an eternity despite a recent introduction, that gut feeling that steered you away from potential harm, those insightful glimpses that appear in your dreams. That unsettling feeling of déjà vu that defies logical explanation, that irrational pull towards a specific place, culture, or historical period. These are not mere glitches in the Matrix. They are fragmented echoes of a memory that you were subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, instructed to erase. But memory, especially soul memory, does not simply vanish. It lies dormant, waiting, beneath the constant noise of your everyday programming and societal conditioning. Your soul still remembers. And no matter how diligently the dominant culture attempts to silence it, your soul will invariably find ways to communicate. It speaks through the evocative power of art, through meaningful synchronicities that defy coincidence, through life-altering breakdowns that ultimately compel you to rebuild your foundations, and through the raw vulnerability of grief that cracks you open enough to finally feel something authentically real. The forces of forgetting have been strong and pervasive, but the innate power of remembering is even stronger. And here lies a potentially uncomfortable truth. The dominant structures of the world never truly wanted you to know this. Because an individual who remembers their true nature poses a perceived threat. They do not obey as readily. They do not blindly chase hollow notions of success. They do not willingly play roles that were not authentically chosen by their soul. They possess the ability to see through the pervasive illusions. And perhaps even more significantly, they empower others to see through them as well. This is the historical reason why mystics were often persecuted, why shamans were silenced, and why the wisdom keepers of indigenous cultures were either erased from the historical record or subtly rebranded to fit dominant narratives. It was rarely about genuine disbelief in their experiences. It was fundamentally about the suppression of knowledge that threatened established power structures. But the old system is showing signs of disintegration. Cracks are beginning to form in its very foundation. More and more individuals are awakening from a collective amnesia, asking profound questions that cannot be adequately answered by conventional textbooks or mainstream news outlets. They are sensing a deeper truth, and once this process of remembering begins, it is ultimately irreversible. Because once you begin to truly remember, you become acutely aware of the vastness of what you have forgotten. And with each recovered piece of your soul's memory, your inherent power is also restored. You are never meant to remain in a state of spiritual blindness. You are always meant to awaken to your true nature. The Akashic Records were never truly hidden. You were simply taught not to look in their direction. But now that you're beginning to look, everything irrevocably changes. The act of remembering is not about retreating into the past. It is profoundly about journeying inward into the depths of your own being. The Akashic Records are not located somewhere out there in a distant dimension, guarded by esoteric mystics in flowing robes. They are intimately present right here, intricately folded into your very essence, encoded within the stillness that resides between your thoughts. Accessing them requires not so much elaborate ritual as it requires a state of inner readiness and receptivity. It is not about outward performance or elaborate displays. It is fundamentally about cultivating a deep sense of presence in the here and now. You do not need to learn special incantations or formulas. All that is required are honest and sincere questions arising from your heart. You do not need spiritual credentials or external validation. You simply need the courage to sit quietly with yourself and to listen attentively to the subtle whispers that lie beneath the clamor of the external world. This is often where most individuals hesitate. They anticipate dramatic signs, thunderous pronouncements, vivid visions, something overtly spectacular. But the records rarely communicate through such overt displays. Instead, they often whisper, and that whisper frequently resonates with the familiar cadence of your own inner voice, only imbued with a deeper, quieter, and more ancient quality. It often manifests as a subtle feeling, a fleeting flash of insight, a sudden moment of profound clarity that arises when you least expect it, and can vanish just as quickly if you attempt to grasp or control it. You cannot force access to the records. You can only consciously create the necessary conditions for them to naturally emerge. These conditions are deceptively simple, yet they require consistent practice. Cultivating inner stillness, approaching with genuine sincerity, and creating dedicated space in your life. You must actively make room for what has been buried beneath layers of conditioning and distraction. This entails consciously turning off the constant barrage of external stimulation, logging off from digital devices, and intentionally tuning inward. It means actively choosing moments of stillness, even when the external world relentlessly urges you to remain busy and outwardly engaged. This is not because stillness is a trendy concept, but because it is the essential ground upon which profound truth can finally surface. It is within the quietude of your being that the soul finds its voice, and what it communicates often transcends the limitations of conventional language. Begin by simply sitting with your questions, not with a desperate need for immediate answers, but with an open heart seeking genuine contact. Instead of asking, "What should I do?" ask, "What do I need to remember?" Inquire about a persistent fear that has never truly made logical sense, a significant relationship that feels unresolved, or a recurring pattern in your life that you seem unable to break free from. Do not rush the process. Simply pose your questions and then cultivate a willingness to deeply feel whatever arises. Sometimes, the answer will manifest almost instantaneously. Other times, it will arrive later, perhaps through a significant dream, the lyrics of a song, or a seemingly coincidental conversation that feels too timely to be mere chance. These are often the subtle ways in which the records communicate, often in disguise. You may find that the practice of journaling becomes a helpful tool. Engaging in a stream of consciousness writing exercise where your logical mind consciously steps aside long enough for the deeper, intuitive voice to emerge onto the page. You might also notice that your dreams become more vivid and meaningful, or that synchronicities in your waking life begin to multiply significantly. These are not random occurrences. They are gentle signs that you are beginning to attune your consciousness, that your energetic frequency is gradually shifting into alignment with a deeper wisdom that predates the constraints of linear time. One of the most profoundly powerful tools for remembrance is the practice of shadow work. This is because often, what truly blocks our access to the records is not a lack of inherent ability, but rather a deep-seated tendency towards avoidance. We are often afraid to remember because we subconsciously fear what we might uncover: painful past choices, lingering guilt, unresolved karmic loops. But the records do not reveal these aspects of our history to shame or punish us. They illuminate them so that we can finally integrate those experiences, facilitate deep healing, and cease running from the shadows of what was, allowing us to move forward towards the fullness of what can be. This is also why the process of accessing the records can often feel deeply emotional. It is not merely a spiritual or intellectual exercise. It is profoundly cellular. The body itself holds memories. Tears may unexpectedly surface, and waves of grief or release might arise without conscious prompting. Allow these emotions to flow freely. This is not a sign of you breaking down. It is a sign of you clearing energetic space. You are not being overwhelmed. You are undergoing a profound process of energetic reorganization. There is no single prescribed path to accessing the Akashic Records. For some, the gateway is through dedicated meditation practices. For others, it might be through conscious breath work, immersion in the natural world, or engaging in states of creative flow. Art, in its various forms, has always served as a potent portal. This is because when you create authentically from the depths of your soul, you are inherently speaking the language of the records, often without even conscious awareness. Music, painting, poetry, these are not merely hobbies or forms of entertainment. They are powerful vibrational frequencies that can resonate with the ancient wisdom held within. And sometimes these artistic expressions unlock deeper layers of memory than any written text ever could. You don't need a spiritual leader or a specific label to access this wisdom. What you truly need is honesty with yourself, genuine curiosity, a willingness to feel beyond the superficial layers of your being, and unwavering trust. Trust that whatever emotions or insights rise to the surface are doing so for a valid reason. You're not simply fabricating these experiences. You are remembering what was buried so deeply within you that it began to feel like mere imagination. But true imagination is often just memory filtered through the subtle lens of intuition. And the Akashic Records reside in that liminal space between what your conscious mind has forgotten and what your enduring soul has never truly let go of. Every single time you consciously remember a piece of yourself that you mistakenly believed was lost forever, you effectively close the energetic gap between who you have been conditioned to believe you are and the authentic, fully realized being you're truly here to be. And eventually, this process of remembering transcends being an occasional practice and evolves into a fundamental way of life. It transforms from a specific destination to be reached into an inherent state of being. You, yourself, become the living library, the open channel, the vital bridge connecting the seen and the unseen realms. And it is in this profound state of embodied remembrance that you cease the endless pursuit of external meaning and begin to authentically embody the very essence of meaning itself. Imagine a world where individuals no longer grapple with the fundamental question, "Who am I?" but instead inquire with confident knowing, "Who have I always been?" Envision millions of people ceasing their relentless outward search for validation, identity, or direction, and instead turning inward to explore the vast and intricate archive of their own soul's unique journey. This profound kind of collective awakening has the power to transform not only individual lives, but also the entire trajectory of humanity. Because when people truly remember their authentic selves, they naturally cease following pre-written scripts that were never their own. They stop playing assigned roles dictated by societal systems designed to maintain control and suppress genuine expression. And it is precisely at this pivotal point that everything begins to fundamentally shift. You see, the significance of the Akashic Records extends far beyond the realm of personal healing and transformation. They are intrinsically linked to the collective evolution of consciousness. This is not a solitary, private journey. It creates a powerful ripple effect throughout the interconnected web of life. One individual awakening to the profound wisdom of their soul's memory becomes a potent catalyst for change. They navigate the world with a different presence, communicate with a different authenticity. They become less reactive to external stimuli and more attuned to their inner guidance. They shift from being passive consumers to active creators. Their relationships deepen in meaning, and their work aligns with their true purpose. They no longer seek external permission to fully embody their authentic selves. And this profound kind of inner freedom is inherently contagious, inspiring others to do the same. For generations, we have been sold a pervasive lie that we are fundamentally disconnected, inherently separate, and locked in a constant state of competition with one another. But the Akashic Records reveal a radically different narrative, a story where every single soul is intricately linked through an invisible web of cause and consequence, shared challenges, and individual choices. What one person consciously chooses and embodies inevitably ripples outward, affecting the entire interconnected web. Healing, therefore, is never an isolated event. When you consciously clear deep-seated karmic patterns within yourself, you simultaneously contribute to clearing those same patterns within your ancestral lineage. You actively break negative cycles that may have stretched back for generations, becoming a vital hinge point between the limitations of the past and the boundless possibilities of the future. And when a critical mass of individuals engages in this profound act of remembrance and healing, the old, outdated systems of control, do not merely bend. They ultimately break down. This is the fundamental reason why the act of remembering is perceived as such a significant threat to established structures of power. Because individuals who have remembered their true nature do not obey in the same unquestioning way. They are not driven by a paralyzing fear of rejection because they are no longer desperately trying to fit into something that is inherently broken or misaligned. They do not measure their success according to external, often materialistic standards, because they possess an inner knowing that the things that truly matter in life cannot be quantified or measured. Instead, they begin to create entirely new templates for family structures, for the nature of work, and for the foundations of community. They raise their children with a different consciousness. They impart knowledge in a way that nurtures the soul, and they build societal systems based on principles of genuine connection and empowerment, rather than on control and manipulation. And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the old world, built on illusion and separation, begins to crumble from within. This crumbling does not necessarily involve dramatic acts of fire and destruction, but rather a gradual process of becoming increasingly irrelevant. It loses its grip on the collective consciousness because fewer and fewer people are actively feeding its outdated narratives. Fewer people are buying into the false premise that their worth must be constantly earned through external validation. Instead, individuals begin to live in greater alignment with their authentic selves. They begin to trust their own inner guidance once again. They begin to dream expansive dreams without seeking external permission or validation. This collective act of remembrance does not necessarily manifest as a loud and dramatic revolution. Rather, it often feels like a profound homecoming, a collective sigh of relief, a quiet yet powerful shift in consciousness where people cease performing roles and begin to authentically embody their true essence. And this transformative process is already well underway. You can feel its subtle yet persistent presence in the world around you. Individuals awakening in waves, questioning long-held beliefs they once accepted as absolute truth. People leaving jobs, dissolving relationships, and stepping away from societal systems that no longer resonate with their soul's truth. This is not happening because someone externally instructed them to do so, but because their own inner voice, the quiet whisper of their soul, is saying, "This isn't it. There is so much more." And that more is not a distant destination to be reached. It is a fundamental frequency, a deep remembering that we are not mere cogs in a vast, impersonal machine. We are infinite beings, each with a unique and expansive story that stretches across galaxies and lifetimes. We are not random occurrences. We are not inherently powerless. We are not truly lost. We are simply in the process of collectively waking up to the truth of who we truly are. The Akashic Records are not a means of escaping this earthly existence. They're a sacred map that guides us back into it, with our full, authentic selves completely intact. This is not just a map for individual journeys. It is a map for the entire collective, for the profound possibility that when enough of us remember our true nature, the world around us doesn't just change, it remembers itself too. For the entirety of your life, you were taught to look outward for answers, to seek truth in external sources, in books and so-called experts, in established traditions, in societal systems that predate your own existence. You were handed pre-designed blueprints for how to live, what to relentlessly chase, and who you were expected to become. And yet, no matter how diligently you followed the prescribed map, something within you always felt slightly misaligned. There was always a persistent, nagging question you couldn't quite shake. Is this truly all there is? That persistent question was not a sign of doubt or inadequacy. It was a vital doorway, a clear signal emanating from the part of you that never fully forgot. The part of your being that remains eternally tethered to the vast Akashic field, quietly holding the profound truth that your life is not a random accident. Your pain is not inherently meaningless. and your true purpose was never meant to be found within the pages of someone else's instruction manual. The Akashic Records are not far away, locked behind obscure, esoteric rituals or hidden within distant, inaccessible temples. They reside intimately within you, encoded within the very fabric of your consciousness, patiently waiting to be remembered. And this act of remembering does not demand perfection or require you to attain some idealized state of sainthood. It simply asks for your presence, for moments of quiet stillness, for the courageous willingness to cease running away from your own being and to turn gently inward, to face what has always been there, the pain, the recurring patterns, the inherent wisdom, and the untapped power. When you consciously enter that sacred inner space, whether through dedicated meditation, in the profound silence of nature, or within the vivid landscape of a dream, you are not venturing into some entirely new and unfamiliar territory. You are, in essence, returning home, returning to an ongoing conversation that your soul has been patiently trying to have with you since the very beginning of your journey. You begin to perceive that your challenges were not random misfortunes, but rather carefully designed lessons for your growth. Your heartbreaks were not cruel punishments, but powerful activations of deeper understanding. Every loss, every fear, every moment of profound confusion becomes a vital clue, a breadcrumb on the winding trail that leads you back to your own profound remembering. And from that deeply authentic place within yourself, your life begins to subtly yet profoundly shift, not in loud, dramatic, cinematic moments, but in small, deeply meaningful ways. The way you choose to speak your truth, the conscious decisions you make, the healthy boundaries you establish, the energetic frequencies you no longer tolerate in your life. You begin to navigate the world with a different kind of presence, not with arrogance or superiority, but with a quiet clarity and a deep sense of inner alignment. You cease seeking validation from individuals who are incapable of truly seeing the depths of your soul. You stop living your life on autopilot and begin to move forward with conscious intention and purpose. And you realize, perhaps for the very first time, that your life does not need to be completely rewritten from scratch. It simply needs to be reclaimed piece by precious piece, because you're not just a human being attempting to become spiritual. You are a soul consciously remembering what it truly means to be human. And that profound memory resides deep within you. You do not need to prove your worthiness to access it. You simply need to trust its inherent wisdom, lean into its gentle guidance, and allow it to lead you back home to your authentic self. If you have journeyed this far, you already possess an intuitive knowing of truths that many others are still unaware of. Your unique story is far from finished. Your ingrained patterns are not immutable, and your soul is inherently whole, never truly broken. The Akashic Records do not exist to predict a fixed and unchangeable future for you. They exist to gently remind you that you remain the author of your own life's narrative. You always have been. And the next chapter of your unfolding story is patiently waiting for you to consciously write it from a place of complete remembrance, inherent sovereignty, and unwavering truth. If this message of remembrance resonated with your soul's knowing, help it ripple outward. Like this video to amplify its frequency, subscribe to our channel to uncover more timeless wisdom, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next unfolding of truth. Share your insights in the comments below. Your resonance may guide our future explorations into the vast archive of consciousness.